Yes, you have to believe it's possible and possible for you, yes. But I think after that, it's easy to forget that if you don't think it'll be worth it in whatever means the most to you.
For me, the three beliefs you must have to achieve anything is you must believe it's possible, you must believe it's possible for you, and you must believe it'll be worth it. The first two, those are very dialed in.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Today, for episode number 1831, it is Freestyle Friday, which means we don't really know what we're going to talk about because we're just going to freestyle it. I don't really have anything off the top of my head, Alan. Usually I have kind of a thought of like, maybe we haven't talked about this before, let's talk about it. In 60 seconds or less, what is the lesson that you have learned this week? Put you on the spot here. Alan didn't know I was going to do this. I didn't know I was going to do this.
It's the one I've been saying, which is you're never going to amplify the pros of something that you're afraid of the con. Which is, when people talk about self-sabotage, I think that's what they're talking about. I think they amplify a strength, or they go for something and they go for it. And then they get scared because the thing that comes with going for it, it's like wanting to be famous but not wanting to be villainized. And that's a metaphor. I'm not saying that I want to be famous, but it's you want to be successful, but you also want to fit in.
Well, isn't that just fear of success?
Yes.
Like a symptom of fear of success?
Yes. And I think the opposite is I'm out of my 60 seconds. So
No, you can go now. I'll give you an additional 30. You bought 30, but with a good answer.
Real quick. So the opposite would be I am afraid of this weakness, and I don't want the cons that come with that weakness.
I knew we were going to.
I knew I was screwed on that one.
That's part of the reason I wanted you to do it, because I've done that on podcasts before, where I'm talking about one end of something, and then I'm like, and also, and then I start going down there, and I say, cancel that. I don't think that's real at all.
I don't think that.
Let's just stick with the first.
The second one. Hold on.
You're afraid you're afraid to highlight the pros because you're also going to highlight the cons. So you'd be afraid to highlight the cons because you'd also be afraid to highlight the pros.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Examples are so important. Here we go. Okay. I believe in myself a lot. Okay, think about that. Isn't that a good thing? You would think that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, hold on. You know who would think that's a good thing? Somebody who doesn't believe in themselves a lot. When I first heard that, it was like, dude, how could you ever complain about having so much self-belief? Right? Because it's hard to empathize with something that seems like the fix, that seems like the solution to all of your problems. Like, oh, well, what a shame it must be to be 6'2", blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Yeah, that must be terrible. As a 5'5" manlet who can't reach. I have to put my wife up on my shoulders to get something off the top shelf, son.
That's a perfect example because you don't understand the cons that come with it. Right. Now, if I had to choose between 6'2", blonde hair, blue-eyed, versus a 5'5" manlet, I would still choose my end. However, you really don't understand what comes with that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a great discussion. I do.
So, is there any truth to the opposite? You don't want
there's
to.
There's pros to you being a manlet, for lack of better phrasing. I'm so sorry.
No, I used it.
Harp.
No.
Okay.
But is there? Would it be the opposite? So you don't want to highlight your cons. I think this is vulnerability in a nutshell. You don't want to highlight your cons, so you actually don't get any of the pros that come with that either. Yeah. That's what I think courage is on the other end.
Agreed. But courage for someone who is fearful of highlighting their weaknesses is they need to show their weaknesses so that they can learn from people who have the strength and progress. For someone who's on the other end, they need to amplify their strengths and face the fear of the downside that comes inevitably with it. And so, for example, believing in yourself is a great thing. But if I go on social media right now and do a Facebook Live and say, I believe in myself more than anyone I know, except for my beautiful girlfriend, Emilia, what the downs, okay, that I do believe, that is true. I do believe in myself, I think, more than anyone I know, except for Emilia. If I were to say that, what's the con that comes with that? There's a huge con, and there's a bunch of cons. It's harder to have humility. It's easy to be overly optimistic. Most people mirror your beliefs, so you can't really tell if they do or don't believe in themselves. Most people are insecure around you. You're unrelatable. There's a bunch of... So you will never unconsciously amplify a great thing about you if you're fearful of the downside of it. And then what was the one for your side is you won't ever show the downside of...
you won't ever show the cons. So you'll never get the potential upside that comes with it. I think vulnerability, you and I, recently I was very vulnerable. I don't remember what we were talking about. It was something behind the scenes. And I just said, hey man, I don't remember what it was. I genuinely don't, or I would say it. I just don't remember what it was. If you remember, you can say it. I don't remember. But that thing that felt like such a con at the time brought us closer, which ended up being a pro.
Yeah.
And I never would have got the upside if I wasn't willing to at least face the potential downside.
I think it was something along the lines of you felt lost or something.
Probably.
Yeah. And you owning that with me is exactly what helped you get more found, for lack of better phrasing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now more than ever, I'm really starting to... So I used to think self-worth, self-belief was everything. Like if that is the differentiator. The differentiator is if somebody has really high self-belief, they can accomplish anything. I still think it's drastically important, especially for external results.
Yeah, if you were to pick one thing, would it still be that?
Self-belief. Self-belief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same. What's number 2?
Self-worth.
Interesting.
Self-worth is number 2. And then, because I think in order to have high self-belief and in order to have accurate self-belief and accurate self-worth, I think you have to have humility. I think that's a byproduct of those two.
Interesting. I was going to say humility for number 2.
Humility is not even on the list because I think it's a requirement. But we can dig. Third one is the worth it factor.
Huge biceps.
I have them.
I'm joking.
I'm not. I'm very serious. I've been working diligently on my guns lately. This shirt is also drastically tight. I don't know what is happening, but everything is shrinking, and I'm not getting bigger, I don't think. So something's going on. Something's in the laundry machine. The laundry gnome is making my clothes smaller.
Making gains, man.
Maybe.
Making gains.
I think the worth it factor is something that is drastically under talked about. A lot of the podcasts I've been on, oftentimes I get asked the question, but as I learn more about myself, my answer changes. I don't want to just give the same answer every time. I want to answer what I think is truthful. The question is always, well, how did you keep going? How did you keep going? Well, I had a business partner, so I felt more guided than I would have if I was by myself. Accountability is there. Necessity is there. Honestly, I always believed it would be worth it. There is something to that. Today I was going through a list of all the podcasts I've been on. 900 and something as of today.
Nice.
Which
That's
is wild.
awesome.
It's wild
That's awesome.
to think of.
What's really cool under that, instead of just it's awesome, real quick.
Please.
How much have you learned? Think about what you learned.
So much.
About yourself. I mean...
Mostly about myself. Not that I haven't learned from other people, but so much of that was internal.
Well, of course, because one of the coolest parts about podcasting is that you are asked questions you've never asked yourself before. And you come up with answers you didn't realize. It brings the unconscious conscious, and it gets you to contemplate a ton. There's so much learning that happens on these microphones, and it's so hard to say this without sounding like such an arrogant butthead. I'm going to say something I believe to be accurate, and I know in advance that I'm going to sound like an arrogant butthead. We podcast for a living about self-improvement and about self-awareness and about human beings and about how to help them get to the next level and success and fulfillment and all these things. And then we go on other podcasts, and what do they interview us on? Usually those similar things.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people at I don't know, at the grocery store, I feel like they're so much less aware than I am just because they haven't had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of deep conversations contemplating existence.
Yeah.
And they haven't read thousands of books and contemplated the books. And then they haven't coached hundreds of couples or dozens of hundreds of couples. So the accumulated compound effect of those 901 interviews, I mean, that's why that's so cool. I just think it's, so much more than Kevin prior to those. So much more. Yeah.
For sure. That's the hard thing is it wouldn't be accurate. It wouldn't be arrogant for someone to say, I've studied football for the last 7 years and I have a podcast about football and all my friends are into football. I know way more than the average person about football. I just think it's a weird thing when it comes to awareness, and that's a weird thing. It's a weird thing where
Could we have set ourselves up for failure anymore?
Probably not. No, probably not. I think it's just harder. It's easy to personalize human stuff.
Versus, hey, I've been studying physics for the last decade.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's like, of course you know more. If you don't know more if you've been studying physics for the last 7 years and you don't know more about physics than I do, you're messing up, because I don't know almost anything.
It is a thing when I say I know more about.
Of course. Yeah.
So people don't want to believe that you know more about them than they know about themselves?
I think that is a very, very, very hard thing to imagine for most people. Understandably so. Yeah.
One of my clients said that to me today. You know more about me than I know about myself. That's why I'm working with you twice a week.
But imagine someone who doesn't think. Imagine if somebody didn't think that would be worth it. Then it's just a giant pain in the ass. Just a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah.
The point in going down that podcast route was I was looking at the shows that I have been on, or some of the shows that I think I did pre-calls for, but I never ended up going on. I don't know exactly. But one of them was a doctor that had I think a PhD from Stanford, a very, very, very developed human being. And I was like, I wonder how their podcast is doing. They did 2 episodes, and then they stopped their podcast. And I was thinking to myself, super high self-belief, most likely. I mean, look at all of the things you've done. I could be off. That could be me projecting what I would expect. But let's just say you have super high self-belief. You didn't think it would be worth it. You didn't think it would be worth it to keep going because all the other stuff, I mean, I went on their website and I was looking at their resume. It's like everything they do, they have done to excellence, but I'm sure they probably believed it would be worth it. And I don't think they believe this would be worth it. And there is something to that. The reason Tara and I had a conversation on our way up to Vermont, and I said that the weird thing about marriage for me is I never really saw myself getting married. That was never, I didn't think about it. I wasn't super conscious of that. And I said the thing that I like the most about marriage is I would rather go through any problem with you than go find a relationship elsewhere, even if it was quote unquote easier. I don't want that. I know this will be worth it. That is what it is, and I know it wouldn't be worth it elsewhere.
Yeah.
We had a really cool conversation on that because it's very just like.
Well, you won't regret it. That's kind of what it is when you know it'll be worth it. And again, that can shift.
For sure.
Because I resonated with what you said about the PhD person. I told this to you early on, and I, again, very courageous and vulnerable here because now I understand how I sound. It's so much harder now that I know how I sound. I want to go back to delusion.
Do you want to talk about the fact that ignorance is bliss potentially? Does it make sense now?
Yeah, maybe. It's temporary bliss. So I used to say this to Kev. I used to say I never stopped doing something because I didn't believe it was possible. I only ever stopped doing it because I stopped wanting the result. I've never once stopped trying toward a goal because I didn't think it was possible. I stopped trying because I decided, you know what, this isn't worth it. For me, the 3 beliefs you must have to achieve anything is you must believe it's possible, you must believe it's possible for you, and you must believe it'll be worth it. The first 2, those are very dialed in. Yeah. But you know what? One of the things, I don't go for things that I don't think are accurately possible or possible for me. Like, it is impossible for me to win an Olympic gold medal in strongman competitions. That is impossible. No matter what I do, I know that that's impossible. I can say that authentically. But I can't say that. If you were to say, Alan, do you think you could be president? And I were to be actually truthful with you, I would say I think it's possible. With my current trajectory, it's definitely not probable. But I could change trajectories tomorrow and start optimizing for that. And I could potentially do it. I mean, look who... There's some presidents that, you know, I could certainly do a better job of, I think. And I know that sounds so freaking arrogant, but I think it's mathematically true. I'm a more well-rounded, holistic individual than some of the presidents we've had. And I know that that's...
Probably most. The fact that, again, we don't talk about politics. We're not going to talk about politics. But the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a governor is truly mind-blowing when you think about it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It's alarming.
That's weird as shit. That's weird
definitely.
as shit.
Okay, so let's get off of that because I think that's an extreme example. And I go to the extreme examples, which I think to try to make points, I realize that I think those extreme examples actually do the opposite.
I think they do, yeah. I think they make points for you. If you heard that point, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I think most people probably know.
I need to work on that.
That's
I don't know how not
about
to go to the extreme example because
toes and little toes and candy corns. It's like everybody's. I think everybody's little toe probably looks a little bit like a candy corn. I'm certain of it. They have to. And most people
never
know
thought
candy
about that
corn.
once.
I know, but I think maybe some other people have. The funny story, really quickly. I had the weirdest dream last night. Okay, I was at an airport. And for some reason, I got a job quickly at a cafe. Somehow I just walked in. They're like, hey, we need someone. And I was like, yeah, I'm your guy. Let's do this. What is it? What do we need? And they're like, we just need you to do the register. I was like, I'm sure I could do it. Yeah.
I was the CFO of a
almost successful business. It's like, I could probably handle this. And the first person comes up to me, and I swear to you, it was like they were speaking a language that I did not understand. And I had no clue what was going on. I had no clue what I was doing. I couldn't figure it out. And I got fired in, I think, about 10 minutes. They already had applications that they sent. They had applications live, and they're like, yeah, we already had people fill out the applications. And I was like, shit, that was quick. You guys were anticipating this was going to go bad? I put that on my story, and somebody reached out to me today and said, I resonate 1,000,000% with what you said because that is what it was like for me to work in the restaurant industry. And I was like, my goodness. So I have a new perspective on every time I go to get coffee. I think the worth it thing is a new wrinkle for me when it comes to getting to the next level. You have to believe it's possible and possible for you, yes. But I think after that, it's easy to forget that if you don't think it'll be worth it in whatever means the most to you, because here's the thing. Let's say you know it's humanly possible to be the strongest person in the world. It's not personally possible. It's not going to happen for you.
And I want to say that. I want to make that very clear. Yeah, it's not possible.
It's not possible for Alan to be the strongest person in the world.
No matter how many drugs, no matter what I do, there's no way.
But what if you believed it would be worth it to try anyway?
Then I would be way stronger than I am now. But I would never win.
But even that's a good perspective of I'm like crying because I was laughing so hard. But you can see it because my studio is so dark and the lights are hitting me just right. It's interesting. Why? What if you just think it would be worth it? What is that? What does that lead to?
Kev, if you were ever to review this episode,
I'm gonna review.
You would see my eyes go. I
just saw it. That's why I started laughing.
Yeah, but I've done it a few other times when
that's
you were
all right. I'm used to that.
When you were looking. No, it's fun.
When we give speeches together, I'm always I'm always kind of looking at Alan when I'm speaking to make sure that he's not making bad faces at me because that means I'm either going off the rails or he's having his own internal crisis.
It's just fun because I can tell. We've done this so many times. I can tell when you're headed in an area that will not be valuable.
I was headed there, yeah.
And I can tell when you're headed in an area that you will find a way to make valuable. And I can tell when you're headed somewhere valuable.
Well,
Go
that
ahead.
was the first one. That was the first one. In this case, that was
definitely.
the first one.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? The the tapping into, I don't know if I can do it, but I think the process of me trying to do it would end up being worth it. There's got to be something in that.
I had a client ask me that earlier, not that exact question, but similar. She said she listened to the episode about potential. And she heard me talk about how I thought your potential was higher than it really was in the beginning, and you thought it was lower than it really was, and how we both have driven to 5, and now I think we're both more accurate about your true potential.
Yes.
And she said, well, what do you think about my potential, and how did you know? And I said, I took me out of the equation. I never used to do this. Me and my best friend growing up, his name was Kiki, and we were going to both go to WPI together, and we were both going to start a company called LazCore, and we were both going to live together at college, and we were both going to get straight A's, and we were both going to be engineers, and we were both going to start our own company. I never took me out of the equation. So I didn't know that he wasn't going to do any of that without me. I did those things. I didn't start LazCore, but I started my own company. So he never started his own company. So what I didn't realize is that I was the catalyst to a large percentage of those outcomes. And so now I've gotten really good. I've tried to get better at taking me out of the mathematical equation. And so what does that have to do with the worth it factor? When she asked me earlier what I think about her true potential, I said, now I'm more certain, plus or minus 5% error, of what your true potential is because I've taken me out of the equation. But anyway, so the worth it piece. Do I believe someone is better off or worse off? And you and I have argued about this for 7 years. Argued is the wrong term, but we've discussed this, contemplated this for 7 years because there have been people in our lives who have come and gone, and people who you believe are worse off for having been poured into in a way that was not aligned with their true potential. And I disagreed, and I said, well, they're better off now than they were before. And this is going to be hard to unpack, but essentially, if we take someone beyond where they could go without us, and then we take us out, you think they're more in over their head than they were before.
I think it's a really hard reality to look at your old life and know it's potentially not going to be, the future's not going to be as bright as your past was. And again, I'm not saying that from an ego place, but it's go ahead.
Let me make it practical. I think this will land. I had a client who asked, I used to do fitness coaching for years, and I had a client who came to me and wanted me to help her lose weight. And I dialed in the system. I helped hold her accountable. I poured into her. I made sure she was on point. I tracked her stuff, and I helped her weigh her food. And it was a lot of positive, constructive work. However, it was also a lot of hand-holding, if I'm truthful with myself. She got to 127 pounds, which was her dream weight, and she was blown away, and she had this massive transformation. It was wonderful. When I stopped coaching her in fitness, she slowly gained all the weight back and then some. And without proper guidance, I do not believe anymore that she will ever get back to 127. Now, it doesn't mean she can't. The only way, in my opinion, she will, based on her current awareness, and I haven't talked to her in a while, so I don't know, but if she doesn't learn and grow and have the humility to get another coach who can get her there, she's not going to be able to do it on her own. That's my actual truth, is I don't think she's going to be able to get back to that on her own, and she's older now, and it's way harder now. So just like you don't think I'm going to get back to the dream physique that I had when I was a fitness coach, fitness competitor, fitness model, my whole world was revolved around fitness, and I'm deluding myself to think I can get back there naturally while 36 instead of 28, while running a business, 3 businesses between the two of Emilia and I. I think you're probably more accurate. Now, I am holding on to exactly what you're talking about, which is it'll still be worth it for me to try. I'm going to try forever because I think it'll be worth it and I'll be better off otherwise. Is that true for everyone? I don't know. And I would ask you the same question.
Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there. I think as long as you feel like the progress is worth the effort, if you're weighing it out, right?
Problem is you won't know that until after the progress comes, right?
But you got to, in my mind at least, I'm thinking right now I'm dieting, and my goal is to get to like 165, 167-ish. And I also have had the conversation with myself, though, of if I get to 169 and I'm sick of it, I feel like that'll be worth it. It'll be worth it to suffer to that. Because I'm still in a better place. I'll be in a better place than I am. What?
How are you calculating whether or not it'll be worth it? Because that's based on core values. This is a cost-value analysis.
Just making shit up, kind of. It's like, carry the one.
Okay, well, let's talk about your wife, Taryn. How have you calculated that it'll be worth it? Because all of us are making these calculations. It doesn't mean we're accurate. And I'm not saying you're inaccurate, by the way.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I'll kill you. You better watch your...
But it is based in something. I mean, to leave Emilia would be the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, because I know there's no one else like her available for me, and I know that I'm what's best for her and she's what's best for me, and I'm calculating all of that by statistics. I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, just winging it. I'm serious. Probably just winging it. A lot of it's just feeling. I feel like I can't. It's been a challenge, not in a bad way, but it's a challenge being married to an entrepreneur, for sure. Especially what we do is very unique. And again, a lot of people do very unique things. I'm not pumping our tires, but
you self-righteous bastard.
I'm the best at everything I do. I'm the man. When Taryn and I got together, I was very broke, right? Like, we've been through the ringer together. It has been a challenge. I can't imagine it being easier with anybody else. That's kind of my thought. Is like, I don't think
so. You are calculating it, yeah. And again, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
You should be.
I am. I'm so grateful that you can have conversational agility. So important.
That. I don't know. Nice. Most of the time, honestly, if I'm gonna be real with you, most of the time I don't really know what the hell you're saying. So I just kind of flow with it, and then I wait for silence, and then I inject, and then you interrupt me, and then the process just rolls again. Pretty much 7 years.
The purpose of an intimate relationship is growth. And again, I'm not just saying this, I'm calculating it too. An intimate relationship, whether or not you are the yin and the yang for each other, whether or not it's constructive versus destructive, I think that the point of relationships are to amplify each other, like to grow. So we had Tori Leto, one of our guests, come to a live event, and she spoke on stage, and she said something I'll never forget. She said, the purpose of an intimate relationship is growth.
Yes.
And I thought that was so powerful, because I had never thought of my relationships from that place. My intimate relationships were determined on how sexually attracted I was to the person, how attractive I thought they were, how well we got along, how much fun we had together, how funny they were, different things like that. I had never until Emilia had my metric be whether or not they were best for my growth.
Mm.
And so the question becomes, and that's what I'm ultimately calculating, is there's no one I believe who is better for Emilia's growth than me. There's no one I believe that's better for my growth than Emilia. And if that were to ever change, I don't think that it ever will, I would encourage her to leave me. Because if there's a man that's better for Emilia than me, she should leave me. Because the purpose of life is to grow to your true potential, to reach your true potential. And I do believe that she can do that with me. I don't believe she can do that with anyone else. And I think that that's ultimately what determines this. At least in my calculation. So don't let me project my calculation onto you.
Yeah,
but
I
it
know.
all depends on your core values. Potential is one of our core values, right?
I talked to the wonderful Tori Leto yesterday or 2 days ago.
Nice.
Sent her a text to check in, see how she's doing. Tori is a wonderful human behind the scenes and in front of the scenes.
For sure.
But just a sweet, 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 sweet human.
The most.
The interesting thing to me about what you said is when I was younger, I wanted the opposite of growth. I wanted easy. I wanted no resistance. I wanted no growth necessary. Me being me is enough. I think that has evolved. That's a big piece of the evolution of like a really conscious, aligned, growth-driven relationship.
Yeah.
Is you don't want to just be able to show up. That's not what it's about.
Well, one thing I'll always adore about Taryn is she's studied in relationships. She's always,
Yep.
I mean, she had more relationship awareness than I did when I first met her. And she's always brought, I can tell that she focuses a lot on making sure you two have a magnificent relationship. I can tell that her dream is to have a magnificent marriage. I can just tell. That's like her dream. And honestly, she's held you accountable to being a better man.
For sure.
And I know there was times in you and I's relationship where when I was single and you weren't, and I had to kind of rein myself in, for lack of better phrasing, because you needed to uphold those core values in order to be with her. And I think anyone who wants to be in a relationship that's just easy, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
For sure. Well, I won't say that. I was going to say I don't think you respect something at the same level if it's easy.
I think that's fair.
I'm sure
you don't appreciate it at the same level, right?
Yeah,
Imagine everyone wakes up with a six-pack with no effort.
Yeah. I won't say you don't respect it because I think that can be, but I don't think that's true. But I do think that it's hard to appreciate something that's super, super, super easy. And
Agreed.
I think that's the thing that you remember is the stuff that you've gone through, especially in a relationship. Where was I going to go with all that? I had a point that I was going to make.
The worth it factor.
Oh. I'm sure it's probably similar. I don't know that I'm thinking about it. I guess for me, in my past, when I was in relationships, anytime something would pop up and it would be like, oh, this is a resistance or this is a problem or this is an issue or whatever, the next thought would be, what's the exit strategy? Like, this isn't going to work.
Whoa, fixed mindset.
Yeah. And now it's not, it's like, yeah, we'll figure this out. We'll figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. And I'd rather go through the resistance of figuring out than not have that at all as an opportunity. Like, I'd rather take that with the relationship than have a relationship that is without that.
So if someone doesn't believe something's worth it, they're not going to invest all of themselves. And if you don't invest all of yourself, it won't be worth it. That's the conundrum.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
That's why we did episodes on this in the past where people say, like, I just care too much. It's like, you got to be careful with that. Maybe you do. Maybe you care more for someone else than they care for you. That's a possibility.
That's
maybe
fine. What you just said, that's fine.
I appreciate that.
You do have to be careful with that, yeah.
You
Being
gotta
the
be
one who
very
cares more might be the winning long-term strategy.
That might be everything. Again, I think a lot of the perspective and a lot of the mindset is dependent on the people around you. The best example I can think of for that is I think it's very important to take ownership in a relationship unless you're with someone who likes to punt ownership to you.
Yeah. Ooh.
I think that's where it's wonky. So that's why you can't blanket statement anything. It's like, you probably should take more ownership. It's like, no. If you take 98% of ownership and your partner's still trying to give you the 2% that they refuse to take, you're jeffed.
Yeah.
You're jeffed, unfortunately.
We talked about that at a live event yesterday. I know. Do we have we got to jump soon?
Oh, we've been over. Yeah, no, we've been over. Yeah, that's right. It's Freestyle Friday. The lights are off. Whatever, man.
The relationship talks event yesterday was talking about the inequities, equal partnership, invisible work, cognitive labor. Instead of these just random words I'm saying, let me define them. So invisible work is all the stuff behind the scenes that gets done that no one necessarily knows is getting done. I'll use being a business owner as a certain, a lot of people think, and she says this in the documentary, she thinks it's hilarious. You'll think this is funny. In the documentary, she said, yeah, for whatever reason, I figured if I started my own business, I'd have more time freedom.
Yeah.
And she said that was the dumbest thing I've ever thought. It's so funny. It's the opposite for the first decade. But anyways, so in business, there's a lot of invisible work that goes behind the scenes to make all this possible. So our production team, everything we've done over the last 6, 7, almost 8 years, 7 years, has accumulated to this right now. How much have we reviewed our own speaking? How much have we tried not to use filler words? How much has the amazing Ron and the NLPS team worked on their craft, on video, audio, all of it? How many audio messages have you sent to the team about production and how, the change in the camera angle and the Freestyle Friday versus small talks versus scratching the surface versus topic and title and episode title, YouTube, thumbnail? It's insane. It's insane the amount of invisible work that's gone in to make this one episode.
Most of it.
Most of it. And that's the problem with this worth it thing. And cognitive labor is even more invisible because it's thinking. A lot of my life, I remember I told you I was having an identity crisis as CEO of most of my life now. It just feels like thinking. That was a phase. It's not that now. Now it's only doing. But it feels very unproductive. I'm just sitting here thinking about the horizon and long-term strategy and metrics and all these things. But there's so much cognitive work and invisible labor that goes into being a business owner, that goes into running a household, goes into being a pet owner. Parents, I'm assuming, is 10 times more than any of that, probably. But I don't know yet because I haven't experienced it, but I can imagine. And then the equal partnership thing is Kevin and I, if we have an equal business partnership, it means that my time is as valuable as Kevin's. Now, I'm CEO, and technically it's a little bit more, my time's quote unquote more valuable, whatever. We're not going to get into that. But my point is, and I was telling this to Emilia at the Relationship Talks event, I'll tie this all together. Emilia said that there are a lot of people out there, particularly men, who unconsciously believe that their time is more valuable than their wife. And statistically, that is true. I've met them, and I can tell.
You mean statistically there are people out there that think that, not necessarily that what they think is true?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. Yes. I don't think that's true at all. And I said this on a podcast earlier with Conscious Couples. I said, if Emilia and I are both blue belts, our time is of equal value in karate. If you are in an intimate relationship where you are leagues ahead of the partner in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development, then technically speaking, you're always going to be the one pouring more. If you are in an equal partnership, it means that there's yin and yang. Kevin is ahead in some things, Taryn is ahead in others, and then you feed each other awareness, belief, comfort, love, whatever, value. It should be a mutual exchange of value. Now, is it going to be 50-50? Absolutely not. Some people have higher potential. Some people grow at faster rates. Some people have coaches and mentors and therapists. But it shouldn't be 90-10. And I've been in intimate situations in the past, where it was 90-10. And I can't do this. I'm too far ahead to where I feel more like a mentor than a peer. And I can't do this. And so what does this have to do with the worth it factor? If you don't think personal growth is going to be worth it, you're not going to invest in the books and the courses and the therapist. I was on a therapy call earlier. You're not going to invest your time and effort into this podcast. Everyone out there watching or listening to this right now, you on some level, whether subconscious or unconscious or conscious, believe that listening to me right now will be worth it. Whether or not you still think that in 30 seconds is a different story, but you do believe it'll be worth it. And one of the things we talked about on the huddle earlier is, how do we have the credibility and the reviews and the branding and the marketing and the social media to make it so that people are more likely to believe it'll be worth it to listen to the show? And if they listen to the show, how do we make it more likely that they'll believe group coaching will be worth it? And how do we help them understand how much a one-on-one coach can change their life if it's the right coach? That's what selling is. How do you help someone believe it's worth it? And I think that you have to sell yourself. And I think that's really what I was trying to get to is if you can't expect someone to come sell you on it, you have to sell yourself. Or you have to have people around you that are willing to hold up the mirror and say, hey, listen, you are not reaching your potential. You're not firing on all cylinders. You're not investing in yourself. You're not taking courses. You're feeling sorry for yourself, and you're not putting in the work. And Emilia is the one who held up the mirror of, hey, you're leaving a lot on the table by not having a therapist. And my goodness, was she right? And I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't have someone who I believed it would be worth it to do the work to earn being with her. And I think that that's just really powerful, yeah.
And there's something to it. It's not something we've talked about a lot in depth. This is probably the deepest we've gone in it, but I think it's something that if you can connect to why don't I think doing this thing will be worth it, I feel like there's an unlock in there somewhere. Especially if you believe you can do it. Okay, I know I can go to the gym. I know here's my vehicle. I have a key fob. I can get in. I know where to go. Awesome. I know how to drive there. Yeah, I don't feel like it'll be worth it. Why? What's that? Where do you not feel like it'll be worth it? Why? Well, my knee's been sore, and every time I go, it re-aggravates it. Honestly, might not be worth it. Okay, what else can we do, though? Instead of going to the gym and doing that, could we do this, do this, do this? I think there's a lot of exploration in that, and I will leave it at that.
Yeah, what would be worth it? Maybe
what would be worth it,
or whatever. Yeah, that's great.
Or what would be more worth it?
Nice.
What would be more worth it? And if you don't want to do something, what would be less worth it? I'm always, I'm telling you, when I'm getting ready to order fast food, I don't want to do it. I think to myself, it's a 10-minute drive. It's going to cost $30. By the time I get home, it's going to be $7.45. I'm not going to feel good after I do it. I'm on a diet. I'm going to end up doing cardio tomorrow. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
What's Kevin doing there? He's selling to himself not to do it. We're always selling ourselves.
Unfortunately, I'm bad at sales, so usually I get that burger, son. No, I'm just kidding.
You got to be careful what you convince yourself of, right?
100%. All right. Next Level Nation, if you want to be the most consistent, aligned, fulfilled version of yourself for a 90-day period, we have our 16th round of group coaching starting on October 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The new year is going to be upon us very soon, and I know a lot of us are going to be making New Year's resolutions and wanting to make very, very quick changes that just aren't sustainable. Get a jumpstart on the new year. So it starts in October. It is 3 months, so that'll bring you into January?
Finish the year strong.
Yeah, finish the year strong.
Yeah, it brings us right through to January, basically.
Right through to January.
I think the last session is in late December, yeah.
So there you go. If you want to get the year off to a strong start and end this year in a very strong manner, please do group coaching. Ends up being $25 per call. You get 2 calls with Alan and myself and the wonderful Amy, and then 2 calls a month with the wonderful Amy. And you will be the most consistent version of yourself. I can't guarantee much in life, but I can guarantee that for sure.
Speaking of Q4 being so October, November, and December, we're heading to the tail end of 2024. We have the Next Level Dreamliner. I have it in front of me. It's got fingerprints all over it. There you go. At the top, there's a star, which represents your dreams. And we break your dreams down into annual goals, into milestones, and then into inch pebbles and metrics. And so essentially what this does is it takes you through a process called dreamlining. There's a commitment to consistency page. I, Alan Lazarus, promise myself I will use this dreamliner on a daily basis, stay consistent, keep an open mind, get outside my comfort zone, not give up on myself. And I signed it and dated it right there. And so I've been using it every single day. I will show you today real quick if you are on YouTube. Hold on. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. So I've been using it. I notice that my days are more likely to go off the rails when I don't do this first thing. So I notice you don't know the value of something until you take it away. We've all experienced that. All of a sudden you get injured, your right shoulder hurts. Now you're like, oh, why wasn't I more grateful? The Dreamliner is so valuable, and I know that because when I don't do it, I notice it. Achieve your dreams 90 days at a time. We have hard copy versions. We have paperback versions. We have 3 different colors. The link will be in the show notes.
They're on Amazon, which is cool. You can get them on Amazon. If you order Amazon, you can get them on Amazon, and there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. Make it easy. All right. We're going to head out. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.